Beautiful. So I'm just double checking everything. I see Colin's face. I see my face. I see that we're streaming live on Facebook. We're recording. This is all good stuff. I'm just going to double check over here that there's some stuff moving. And there we go. One more second. There we are. I see us. Beautiful. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where everybody is. Colin, thank you so much for staying up late. I completely forgot that we have something silly called time change. Speaking of times and how everything goes. So next week, we're going to make a little bit of an adjustment, and we're going to start an hour earlier. So that's going to be 10 a.m. for Pacific Standard Time, and then go ahead and make the adjustments for there so I don't give anybody the wrong time. So I'm Chastity, and I'm here again with Colin Joe. And wow, it's election week, you guys. It's election week. There's lots of things happening. I think the UK just shut down again. We've got a lot of things going on. And after chatting a little bit with Colin this morning before we popped on with you guys, he brings up a really important piece that there's a lot for us to think about. And so when we talk about what practical spirituality is, how spirituality is intertwined with politics, and not just exopolitics. Okay, we're talking about like how does our world fit together, and why is spirituality tied into this? So, Colin, you said something to me this morning that I'm actually still thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a really great conversation. You said theory not put into practice is just theory. And it just remains a theory, right? There's no moving pieces. So I'm very curious, and I would love to hear about how you take your spirituality and create a practice out of this. And let's just kind of move forward from this, because it's going to explode out into all kinds of directions, I know. But welcome. Thank you for being here, and thank you everybody that's popping on to watch as well. Welcome.
Yeah, my mother was a big one on saying, the saying was often said in our home, because we were Catholics and, we were religious. But she often used to say, don't be so heavenly minded that you know earthly good. And you drummed into us that if you're going to be a Catholic, you must be a Catholic everywhere. And not just some places. You don't be a Catholic in church, you have to be a Catholic everywhere. And I couldn't really understand it. So one day I asked her, and I said, what do you mean by that? She said, because everywhere you go, you take your spirituality with you.
Mm-hmm.
And once you begin to exclude your spirituality from your practical daily life, then you cease to be spiritual. So it was a kind of a philosophy that she had. And, I seem to be the only one in our family who took any cognizance of that, but my early formative years. But what she was saying, and I agree with her, and that was of great guidance to me, that if I claim to be spiritual and a loving, kind, gentle person, why can't I take that wherever I go? So if I go onto the sports field and I'm competitive and competitive, why can't I do that in a spiritual way? I don't have to, hate the guys I'm playing against.
Mhm.
I'm competing. I'm combative against them because that's what they've agreed to, and that's what we've agreed to. We've agreed to enter into this combat to fight with each other or to race against each other. So spirituality doesn't mean that we have to be non-combative. We can be combative because it depends on what we are fighting for. And when you're in a sports team, you're fighting for your team. And, whether it's an individual event like swimming or athletics, then you still have your teammates who have been competing in other events and you're having to do your best to actually, win whatever competition it was. So I always remained a fairly combative person. And, I try to take that attitude of being spiritual in whatever activity I want to get involved in. And during the years that I was um, a grid worker, I lived a very quiet and secluded life and cloistered life, but I paid attention to what was happening in my neighborhood. So when I started to notice that there were a lot of derelict buildings that were being used as kind of drug centers or centers for, I phoned my ward councillor and I said to him, "Are you aware of this?" And he said, "Yes, he is aware of this, but he's fighting his own battle in the council to try to combat that." And then he said to me, "Will you help and join us in doing something about it?" And I said, "Sure." So he nominated me to be a ward councillor, which in each of our cities, they're people who have to find out what's happening in their ward, in their particular part of a region they live, and then that goes to him, the councillor, and the councillor takes that to the municipality.
Mhm.
So I became involved in ward counselling. That's politics, because politics is the way the world runs, how you choose to see the way the world runs. And so that raised a lot of issues about law, about legal matters. It raised issues about social justice. It raised questions of values in society and what values people hold and what values, people would ascribe to. And when we did, because I became involved in this, I started researching the owners of that property, of the properties surrounding my area that were being used. They were basically squatter places, but places where the windows had been broken, window frames removed, doors removed, fences being broken. And when I have researched those properties, I found that all of those properties belonged to the government. They weren't private,
Oh,
and so I made my councillor aware of this, and he was sort of aware of it, and trying to do something about it. But the point I'm making is, if I can't take my values and my spirituality into my community, then it is of no earthly good.
mhm.
You I became interested in various cultural societies and different cultural groups in my area. When I walked up the road to my shops, as I passed people, I would look at them, smile, and say, greet them. If they were black, I'd greet them in their own language, like "Good Johnny, Papa," or "Good Johnny, Papa." And I think that kind of acknowledgement of another person is very important, particularly in our society in South Africa, because the Africans are very aware that white people don't acknowledge them. It's almost like they don't exist. So they just walk past each other. They don't look at each other. They don't acknowledge each other. They just walk past each other. So I made a point of looking at people and then greeting them and smiling at them. And so, when I went to the shops and I bought something, and the lady behind the till, I would thank her for their service. I would say, I'm really, are you having a nice day? Especially during COVID, all these people wearing these masks. I can imagine wearing a mask for 8 hours for the day. I mean, it must have been horrific for people because they were breathing in their own carbon monoxide. And I would thank them, and I'd say, I really appreciate, your service. And I wouldn't say I appreciate you wearing a mask, because I don't believe in that nonsense.
Mhm.
But I recognized that these people were struggling, and having difficulty. When the COVID-19 hit, I made an appeal on my Facebook page asking people for donations. I didn't expect a big response because, I should have, but I didn't. And I got a very big response from people who started making donations. And the particular concern I had was the government introduced certain support legislation where South Africans would receive certain financial support, particularly the poor. But that excluded completely non-South Africans. And we have a lot of illegal aliens in South Africa, and some very fine people who are here as illegal aliens. And I knew that they were going to be in dire straits because there would be no support whatsoever for them. So I made an appeal for people to donate to this cause for non-South Africans. And I got a really great response. In our local monetary rand, it was 60,000 rand, which buys a lot of meals for South Africans, So because it was such a big response, I had to find ways to distribute that money that was even and effective and, at the best cost, the best price. So, that took a lot of my time to actually, but I found organizations, local organizations, because I believe charity begins at home. I can't support the whole of South Africa, but I could make a difference in my own community. So I found organizations in the community that were feeding people on a daily basis. They were giving food parcels out. And so I supported them. I started giving them money. But I first found I had certain conditions, like you have to tell me how you're going to spend this money, where's the money going to. I wanted the names of the people you're giving the money to. I wanted telephone number. I wanted address. So I could validate, because in South Africa, there's so much corruption that you really don't know who you're dealing with a lot of the time. And like the food parcels that were distributed here, a lot of them were only going to those connected to the leading political party, those from who weren't in that particular loop with political parties were being excluded. So, I got involved in those kind of issues as well. But having said that, I have a concern that people wanting to be spiritual aren't applying that in a practical way, And the way I try to apply it is I have the saying, we have to be God to each other in order to save humanity. We have to start being God to each other and not just speaking about God and, thinking about God out there. But in reality, God is within us. We are God because, we are connected to the universe. We have this doctrine of separation on this planet where people have this illusion of separation. And yet it's such a crazy illusion, because without other people, my life would have no meaning.
It's I was reading about the Tibetans and how they go into these caves, you know, to achieve this level of consciousness, right? To reach some type of like body formation, to be able to like move on into the spiritual world. And what I found fascinating about that story is that how do we face how do they face their demons, or how do they integrate things when they're not interacting with humanity, right? Um, I found that very curious, and there's so many different ways to express spirituality, right? Like they do that, but I feel like so many people, and um, thank you so much for helping your community, first of all, because that is beautiful. And this is one of the things that we're seeing when there's a divide, right? There's a political divide. And what that does is what we find that we are not even in alignment with our own personal integrity. And when we don't have personal integrity and coherence, then we are of no use even to ourselves, let alone you know, helping those in need.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it works. Because from a spiritual point of view, integrity sets up the central vertical energy,
Yes.
but that is resonating at a frequency. It's not a wobbly frequency. It's a central, certain frequency that is able to communicate with the universe
Yeah.
and receive messages from the universe and give messages to the universe. It can receive frequencies and waves of energy from the universe, and we can plant that into the earth.
Yes.
So integrity is the most important. Integrity and authenticity. People often say to me, well, you write a lot about it, authenticity and integrity. Why do you do that? Because that is your central soul vertical energy. Because we live our experiences in a Merkaba field.
Yeah.
A Merkaba field is a field that generates energy around the body, and it has the shape of a toroid. And in the center of that toroid, you get what is called the 0 point energy field.
Mm.
And if you're not in integrity with yourself, you're not going to be in touch with that 0 point. So you can't look at life objectively. You can't see things. You can't actually see what you see. You only see what your brain is telling you you should see.
Right. Um, I'm going to reach out to one of our guests. Emily says, like the nervous system in the body. So help. Maybe we can help our listeners understand how the actual central nervous system is connected to the vertical channel. Um, is it do you see what I'm saying? Like, just try to make it a little bit more simple, say, because some people are having that connection, understanding there, and we actually have an etheric central nervous system that actually runs our nervous system, right? So how do we make that how can we explain that to our listeners in a little bit more detail?
Okay, now the connection between the spirituality and the nervous system is this, that we have this toroidal field that is our soul body. Okay, it has many toroids and it works in a particular way through our chakras and through our meridian lines in our bodies. But essentially, the nervous system is our synapses in our bodies. They're like little fish-shaped things, you know, and you get potassium and sodium that sets up this connection in in the physical body. But that system works best when the body is calm, when the body is peaceful. And where does that peacefulness come from? It comes from being in integrity and authenticity.
Yep, thank you.
Authentic and integrous, you are calm. When you are calm, your nervous system is calm. But when you're not calm, you have all these shocks going through your body, through the nervous system. It increases the amount of electromagnetic energy that is being exchanged between your various synapses in your nervous system. So being in integrity with oneself and authenticity, and actually doing that at, in, practically going out there and being this integritous and authentic person changes your nervous system. And when you're listening to all the nonsense that's going out there and all this frantic fear energy that's being portrayed, this is going wrong and that's going wrong, and bombs here, people killed here, people killed there, Trump's going to win, Trump's not going to win, and all this negative energy feeds the amount of negative energy in the body that is shocking to the nervous system. And that brings a lot of shock into our bodies. And we don't know that the origin of that is from our spiritual body.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you keep the spiritual body in alignment, then it stays calm, peaceful. It's not affected by things that are out there. It can detach from all the nonsense that one experiences out there and go back into the calm nature that we are in our central body, right, in our central soul body. Yeah. So making that connection between soul and body is so very important. Soul body and physical body, they are separate things, but they're intertwined with each other. What happens in the soul body will be expressed in the physical body. So if we having a bad day experience, where's that bad day experience coming? Usually coming from outside of you. Mm-hmm. And that's when you've got to be able to retreat into the inner soul, into the 0 point of integrity and authenticity. But if you don't have that, then you're going to continuously be affected by what's happening outside of you.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm a licensed massage therapist as well as energy integration, help people heal energetically as well. But, explaining what their physical body is, why does my back hurt? Why does my leg hurt? Why does my knee hurt? And I'm like, well, you probably don't want to hear my answer for that. It's, not just because you twisted your knee or, planted your ankle and this moved or, but there's actually emotional, when we're not living into alignment, not standing in our light or in our own personal integrity, it happens way out here in your soul or your spirit, or even your avatar self. It happens somewhere else. And then when we're not connected to that consciously, right? Then it keeps coming down in through the different layers and in through all these different fields, and then hits the body. And it's like, well, if you're not going to listen to me out here, now we're going to have to give you a zinger. And now you're going to have some low back pain. Now you're going to have some financial struggles. Now you're going to have these other things. And it actually rips and tears through your light body. And then you can get all kinds of different attacks. So nobody really likes to hear what I have to tell them when they lay on the table. But I'm like, sorry, it's going to take a lot of work and understanding. That's having self-awareness. So that most of us don't have self-awareness, and whoever controls the what is that statement, Colin? Whoever controls the mind controls the soul, right?
Yeah, it's people, unfortunately, people here have been given a totally wrong education. Yeah. On Sirius B, where I come from, the education is around all about the energy body, the soul. And everything is related outside of that, everything that happens within the soul body is expressed in the outer world. And so they take great care about their thoughts and emotions, their standards and values, and their attitudes, because they realize that we live in an energetic universe, and everything is just about energy. So when they incarnate, okay, now on Sirius B, the gestation period for a being is 7 years before, and they don't, the gestation is different from gestation on Earth, and that there's no uterus sac or anything. That a person simply is in resonance with the person who's carrying that child or that, and it grows that infant, and it's teaching that infant, it's feeding the energy from their own soul body into that infant. So when and beings that don't marry like we have here on Earth, where a couple come together and they get married and then they have children. It doesn't work that way there. What happens there is the community agrees that they want to introduce a soul body, and they recognize when two people are ready to incubate a soul body. And then they have to approach the Syrian Council. The Syrian Council listens to their case, and then if it's agreed, then they agree to a ceremony where the whole community will come, where they will have a procreation ceremony where, this couple, and it's a whole carefully planned array of people standing in various formations and with drum beats and cymbals and chanting and spinning and turning, and it comes up to a crescendo, and then suddenly this couple walk into each other. They literally walk into each other, and they become one. And with that, there's like a energy field that comes out of the two of them that explodes, and everybody orgasms.
That sounds really. I have actually heard some a very very similar story my whole life from an idea. I was listening to a psychic years ago, back when the psychics back then had to just kind of chisel their way through the heavy dense energies, right? And so the example I heard was that we had merged together, right? And there was this merging. Um, so I've always found that fascinating and beautiful. And but one of the things you said to me, I want to bring this up because I have birthed 5 children, right? And what I find most fascinating is that you said it takes 7 years for incubation on Sirius B. And I've spent some time on Sirius B too. And so my memories are coming back, and I love connecting with you because then I walk away a week later and I go, oh my gosh, now I'm remembering this, now I'm remembering that. So this is has been beautiful for me. But 7 years gestation specifically stands out to me because here, humans, their first sense of I don't know what word is I'm looking for. It's not really soul, but by age 7, they are basically then prepared to spiritually, or however whatever word I'm looking for. I'm not finding the right word, but they go then from being at 7 years prepared and ready, and then by 12 years they should have their first soul integration. Does that make sense to you? So I find that very curious that at 7 years there, and our human children, we have to nurture them and care for them a certain way up until age 7. So I find that very fascinating for the moms and dads out there.
Yeah, because the point I was making earlier about the education
Mhm.
is in this gestation period, basically what the a host who has agreed to host, because they're not everyone there is androgynous. So but they know how to run female and male frequencies in their bodies. So the one agrees to be the male and the other one agrees to be the female. The role of the male is to look after the female, because it is quite an energy sapping process to have somebody grown in your soul body. So it's like two souls emerging from one soul, and when that soul is ready, then they have another ceremony where they call that the incarnation ceremony, where when that person's becoming an incarnate being, they then have physicality, but on seriously, the beings that aren't physical as we have physical here, they're etheric beings, so they have etheric bodies. But so they can walk through walls and do all kinds of things that we can't do here. But this person walks out of their parent, and then the whole community takes responsibility for that child, for that young person. It's not the parents. The parents then just become guardians of the child to give advice, to give leadership, and so on. But the entire community has to agree, and they contract to agree to look after that being. And there's not, the family structures are not like we have family structures here. The families are not just the two parents. The family structure is the entire community. They're part of the community. So it's a very different cultural system to what we have here. And I think it's a system that is worth actually looking into and seeing the various contract levels that happen, because people tend to carelessly have children here rather than having going into a contract universe to have the children and contract with the community. How are we going to look after this child? It's our joint responsibility. It's not just the responsibility. So parents don't carry that responsibility alone. It becomes a responsibility of the entire community. So it introduces a lot of different ideas. But having said that, I don't want to be so heavenly minded that I'm no earthly good.
Well, and that kind of can bring us circle us back around to understanding what having this erosion of personal integrity and the system that we live in, and I call it a system because I feel like we live in a system. It's not organic to us, and I know we discussed this, but and it is basically it's dehumanizing. And the tactics that are happening right now are like this last little push of, hey, remember, we're in control of you guys, and we're just going to continue to create this separation. So you can never have your own set of values. You're going to have our set of values, which creates that conflict within, and then we don't, like you said, we don't look at each other in the eyes. We don't
Yeah,
say thank you so much for breathing in your own carbon dioxide, right? We don't say thank you so much for did I say dioxide? I'm sorry about that. Anyway, uh, we then just continue to allow these attachments and ideas of other people. We continue the control. We separate from community. Because we're separated from self, right? We're allowing somebody else to tell us what our values are instead of standing in our own integrity. And
yeah.
yeah, I would love to live in communities personally, like real ones, right?
And so, we've got an election coming up on Tuesday, a very important election for the USA. And that's when people have got to make some real choices about their values, and the values that they will uphold and the values that they can subscribe to. Because to me, it's not about a vote on the Democrats and the Republicans. It's a vote about the policies and the values of both parties.
Yeah.
Donald Trump to me is, in a sense, I didn't like the guy before he came into the office. In fact, I had quite a low opinion of him. But when he was nominated, I thought, well, when he announced himself for the nomination as the candidate for the Republican Party, I thought, this is very weird.
Very strange, right? Like, wow, that's what we have, huh?
Yeah. Because the first thing I noticed, he's not a politician.
Yep.
And that encouraged me because he was coming from outside the political system. So he was outside the system.
Mhm.
And somebody outside the system can change the system
Yep.
because you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created it in the first place. So he could bring a different consciousness to the whole political system in the USA, and he's actually done that. And then I started to notice that his policies that he was announcing, he wanted free trade, he wanted, to strengthen the military. He wanted, he was pro-life. He was, he had many policies that I actually felt were helpful, like normalizing the immigration system in the USA so that people would come in legally and above board, and then he announced the wall, and that was quite a a
That was
big thing.
Yeah, that's
Very,
a really big deal here. But what a lot of people don't understand about what the wall is for, and what who's being stopped is a lot of child traffickers, right?
yeah,
This isn't about I know there were just some jokes and stuff on Facebook, like when the mention of coyotes, like they're being brought up, the children are being brought over by coyotes, and so some people actually thought that that meant that coyotes, the dogs, were dragging children across the border, which I found quite humorous. And I shouldn't have. I should find compassion in the fact that it's proof that we are very uneducated group of humanity, human beings. We're very uneducated when it comes to this. And thank you, Ian says Trump has fought human trafficking, and that's exactly what's happening, right? The reason these parents haven't come back and picked up their children is because they weren't parents that brought their children to the
yeah,
border to try to come into the country to have a better place. These were actual traffickers, and a lot of people aren't understanding that.
yeah. And a lot of drugs were coming in illegally across the border. So it was child trafficking, drugs that was coming across, and then foreign governments in this South America were being financed to actually send people to the USA on these immigration marches that they were doing. And what they were trying to do is come in as a kind of those caravans were kind of a show of strength, and for the Democrats to watch how Trump would heavy-handedly deal with them. But as it turned out, he didn't deal with them heavily-handedly. He appealed to the Mexican government, and they responded and agreed to work with the U.S. government. And sure, there was some heavy-handed stuff going on, but I think it was really, I think governments have the right to protect their people. And if governments don't protect their people who voted for them, who paid taxes to keep them in government, then and to strengthen the infrastructure of countries so that it makes the well-being of the people in the country better, then what are governments for? And if they can't recognize a threat, because there are many threats to any country, even to planets, and that's why on Sirius B they have the Syrian Council, because they are watching out for any threats that there might be in the universe to not just Sirius B, but to the entire infrastructure of the universe and how it works. So it's a practical thing. It's not just a theoretical thing. And Donald Trump has introduced some policies which I think, are great. He changed the NAFTA agreement. He introduced a new agreement between Canada and Mexico, which is going to improve trade. He's challenged China in terms of trade and the unfair tariff practices of China. He's challenged them on their um, uh, uh, currency control and currency manipulation programs. He's also challenged them on the theft of intellectual property from America. And people are not aware that there are many universities in America that are financed partly by China, who give donations to those universities so that students from China can come and study at these universities. So the whole thing becomes a kind of a threat, a war that's going on that people are not cognizant of, and it's a war for resources on this planet, and it's a war for changing people's minds and controlling people's minds. And I think it's been fair to say that Donald Trump is being demonized to such a large extent. One has to ask, why is he being so demonized? And he's being demonized because people don't like what he's doing. So who are these people who don't like what he's doing? These are the people who, controlled the illegal systems before, and they controlled the money, and they controlled, the people of the planet, and they manipulated people. And, so, there was a media organization in the US that did a survey on remarks about positive or negative remarks about Biden and Trump in the US media, and they found that for every one negative statement about Biden, there were 128 negative statements about Trump.
That's unbelievable.
So the media is so biased there against Donald Trump. And, the media there is controlled basically by 8 people. So they write the script. And media in America are not fulfilling their functions that they were originally purported to fill the function of. So they've lost their ability to do their own research. They've become literally a propaganda machine who just voice out the same stuff over and over again. There was one night on news where there was something like 30 television stations saying exactly the same thing, word for
I've seen those compilations put together. I know that there are some uh, really good reporters out there. And so when we talk about the media being bad, they're not all bad. However, the issue is they're being blocked and stopped from doing good reporting. They're not able to speak about what they find. And I don't know if you're familiar with this amazing reporter we have up here. She's not doing a lot of stuff right now, but her name's Liz Crokin, and she did a lot of research on Trump, and has been silenced big time. One of the things that she had said, I was listening to her with Laura Eisenhower and David Rodriguez. I don't know if maybe I can get that video to you. It was very, very exciting to watch. And with all of the research that they have done, that Liz has done specifically, she says that she really feels like this is going to be like the 1984 landslide that Ronald Reagan had. That Trump is this is going to be a landslide, and it is what it is. I'm really excited. I'm really excited what I see from our education system. And you're right, 8 people on the media, right? And these are the same factions that are controlling our government, controlling our medical industries, controlling our banking systems, and controlling these things. And I think right now they've got such a stronghold, and because we're having these memories come up, um, not Earth memories. I think we're having galactic memories. We're starting to remember. You've been in contact and remembering life on Sirius B. I have full on memories of Tiamat blowing up. I remember being a Lyran being. It's the electric wars. I think that we have no knowledge of because we weren't taught about them, but that's I think what's surfacing, and they're trying to like our DNA is plugging back in, guys. We're remembering shit. Right? And it doesn't matter. I didn't like President Trump either. I thought, oh my gosh, they've got to be kidding. Right? I don't like the way he talks necessarily. I think about all these things. And what's really fascinating is the people that still can't stand him or don't like him. It's like, have you tried taking a look inside yourself? Because where are you holding any type of compassion? And there's a difference between somebody being crass, speaking a certain way, or actually being a human versus somebody else who is looking to depopulate humanity, is guilty of crimes against humanity. These are different things. Making mistakes is human, and creating crimes against humanity. Those are huge differences, and and people aren't understanding this.
Yeah, yeah. And so we can't kind of take a monastic view of life and just say, well, that's politics, that's over there,
Yeah,
it doesn't affect me. Because in reality, if I can't bring my standards and values, authenticity and integrity into society, then what the hell am I doing here? You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
you know, I
exactly.
shouldn't, I shouldn't want to live a kind of monastic life separate from everything and everybody else.
Mhm.
I've done that, and but during that time, I still got involved in community affairs and things that were happening in the community. I cared about seeing the beggars in the street outside. I would sometimes bring them in and offer them a cup of tea and a
Mm.
sandwich, and just little things like that. So we should not be so heavenly minded that we know earthly good. You know,
I must have just uh I love your mother. I love I love her wisdom that you're bringing through. So thank you for sharing pieces of her. Um I wanted to read what Bart said because he wrote, "We are the new media and the new government. We govern ourselves the way we want it. Love." He says he loves our sharing and experiencing about this. Thank you so much, Bart. One of the things that this reminds me of is bringing cups of tea, like like you're saying, smiling, saying thank you, being conscious, standing in integrity. There are a lot of people who have really big passion and voice. And what they've forgotten as being a human is that you can take that passion and voice and fight for your people. Like it is our job as humans to hold our government accountable that they're actually doing their jobs. There are groups that assemble that make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and not stepping outside of their orders, not making false laws, not implementing things that shouldn't be implemented in cities and counties and states and in other countries. And it's our job, and we have not felt that we have the power to do that, right? We've been quieted for so long, muzzled for so long, and controlled for so long. And now we're out of the frequency fence. There's too many of us out of the frequency fence.
Yeah, yeah. And we will make the difference.
Mhm.
It's not going to be government that makes a difference. It's the people who will make a difference by them staying in authenticity, in integrity, holding strong values, and demonstrating those values to the world, and demanding that the world outside of them adheres to those values. People so easily accept values that are not worthy of holding. Like we accept war. War is murder. You
Right.
know, and so we have to say to our governments, hey, guys, we don't have to fight wars. We don't need to have wars anymore. And it is our choice rather to stand back. But if we're attacked, we will defend. So our our military should be about defense, not about attacking other countries.
Right.
And I think America's been for too long been involved in attacking other countries without justification, and that was done purposely by the military-industrial complex there that sees that they make profit in war. There is a lot of profit in
They
war. They
make a,
learned
yeah.
They learned that in the Second World War. So, we have to say, whoa, as Ike said, you beware of the military industrial complex,
Yep.
because,
Bless his heart. Yep. And
and we have the right to put somebody in government who will say, we don't want wars anymore. And that's what Donald Trump is saying.
yep. And that's what the backlash is here. That's the big thing is now they're going, well, how are we going to make our money? And now people are waking up and seeing all of this and seeing that we've put this smoke screen up, right? And now they're just completely losing control. And I have a question for you about war in the sense of energetics. This question was posed to me the other day by a friend of mine, and it made me curious how to feel about this. There's been quite, I think most of us that work in this field understand that Trump is very well protected by Christ forces, actually. So very, very well protected. The White House is protected. His group is protected. And somebody had stated that the energy field, right, how these fields work, is actually set up to if you attack the person or the field, okay, let's say you're going to the person, but what you're going to hit is the field. And that field is specifically designed to then attack the person or give back the person what they gave. And I hope I'm saying this. I hope I'm doing the question justice. But somebody had stated that perhaps that's not Christ-like, because the other person then will get attacked, and then that is the fact that you set your energy field up. Like, let's just say you set yours up or I set mine up, and then it's like whoever tries to come in is gonna be attacked back. Is that defense or is that attacking? Is that does that create an not an entropic system, but does that create any type of karmic patterning, or have you not stand in personal integrity or lean towards hate because you're in it? Does it mean you're inviting negativity to the other person? Am I making sense?
Yeah, this all is a crazy system that works in this world. But if, for instance, if people in a country are in integrity with themselves, if they're being authentic, they won't be offended easily by other people. So there's because what creates the need to attack other people is to defend. So when you unoffended, you only should be offended by values that don't align with your own values and the values of the universe. It's not just your own values. And, and so if people's understanding of what war and conflict is all about, in the universe, I know this from first-hand experience, there is a process, and beings are not allowed to go to war against one another without good cause, and it's really this feeling of a need to defend oneself that causes all this offense around, because when you're in this defensive mode, you can take offense about just about anything. But if somebody comes to you with a proposal or an action that seems to be offensive to you, if you are easily offended, then you're going to defend that. So you become more warlike,
Yeah.
become more, combative and more want to fight. And it's this fight or flight mode that people have intrinsically within them. It's been programmed into us. If you can get away from that kind of thinking and learn to be unoffended most of the time, and only to be offended when we feel it's an attack on our own personal integrity and our personal authenticity. And there is a lot of attack on human integrity and authenticity that's been going on this planet, and that's what people should be wary of and defending. They shouldn't want to destroy another being because they are being offended. They have to see, because we create our own reality. And if we've been attacked by these other beings, we allowed that to happen to us. So we have to question, why did I allow this experience to happen to me? And then question the values that I had that allowed that thing to happen to me, and then adjust for that. So we have to keep adjusting ourselves in order to experience a more peaceful world. It's not dependent on governments or things like that. That's a kind of a human concept that, governments fight our wars for us, but we're in war all the time. And we have to learn how to manage our own smaller wars on the basis of our values. And when we can manage these smaller wars, we can then uh, know which way we want to vote.
Mhm.
Do we want to vote for a government that wants to fight and kill everybody, or do we want to vote for a government that says it's okay to have peace with other neighbors? It's okay to be at peace with your enemies. It's okay to negotiate with your enemies. It's okay to talk to your enemies. So this crazy notion in politics that it's wrong for Trump to speak to Putin, or it's wrong for Trump to speak to some dictator in South America, that's crazy. Those are the people you should be talking to,
Mhm. Yeah.
because that's how you avoid war.
Is it, Ian is asking, thank you, Colin, that was beautiful. And one of my favorite things, and I'll just follow it with this, and it's the same thing, and I think I've said it on our show before, is what other people think of you is none of your business, right? Or other people's reality is that it's just that, it's theirs, right? So
Yeah,
stop handing over, stop giving people power over you, right? There's no reason for it. Ian is saying, is it wrong to just stop a physical or psychic attack using proportionate force?
yeah. This is a tough one,
That's
Ian. I think it takes a real understanding of the power that we hold within ourselves, so that when we have these psychic attacks, we have to know the power that we hold within ourselves to withstand it.
Mhm.
And we don't have to retaliate it. It's like Bruce Lee said, become like water, So these attacks come and they just go past you because you become invisible to those attacks. One doesn't have to retaliate with any kind of force unless one really needs to. But in the universe, most beings are not aggressive. I've been in other parts of the universe, and most beings are very respectful, very kind, very loving, very gentle, um, very understanding. They're patient. They glow with love and kindness. And if they are attacked, they just know that the energy that they hold within themselves is sufficient to not be harmed by that attack. And we have the sense on this planet that when we attack, we're going to come to some harm. But you know, we can just relax and know the power that we have, and not be in any way provoked or in any way feel weak.
Yeah.
So we have to know our own power. And for instance, this war that took place on Saturn, okay, it's been coming for about 243 million years. That was a process that happened before the actual wars happened. So there's a procedure that goes on, before anyone is able to do any kind of aggressive force against other beings. It's not like on this earth we get an attack, let's shoot back. It just doesn't work that way in the universe. There's a lot, because there's a lot just at stake. Because, for instance, what's happening in America on Tuesday is not just going to affect America,
Right.
it's going to affect everybody on this planet.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a big responsibility that the people in the United States have, because I know it will affect my country, South Africa, because there are a lot of people in South Africa watching what's happening in the USA, because we have a corrupt government here. And that corruption's starting to come out now, and it's been exposed. But unless Trump gets into power, then this corruption's just going to carry on. But if he gets into power, then there's going to be a serious threat
Yeah.
to the corrupt people in our government.
Yeah. And I know South Africa is and Australia and even Canada, the UK. Like I think when we were just starting this, I was just saying that I saw the UK is back down on lockdown. I suspect we're going to go back down to lockdowns again, like more intense. We're not out of them, but yeah, I think there's lots of things happening, and I have the same sense as you. If he doesn't get into office, then it's not just going to be the tyrannical um, government that we've seen. I think it's going to be raised up quite a few notches. I think it's going to get really ugly. So it's very, very important. Tuesday is
Yeah,
very, very important for
yeah, and
our world, for our people,
my
for humanity.
my feeling is it's going to be a landslide victory for the Republicans, but I don't think the Democrats are going to concede the election.
Yeah.
And I know, because I've been told by my higher selves, that there have been various organizations being trained in the United States to create as much um, protest and chaos in the streets of the United States
Yeah.
to try to make the country ungovernable.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to succeed, because, you know, they, if you have a guy like Donald Trump in power, he's not going to sit back and just allow that to happen.
Mm-mm. And
And
I,
also, we're on the precipice of a lot of stuff coming out about the deep state, and indictments of people for their corruption. You
Mhm.
know, and it goes. People just don't understand how deep the deep state is.
Right. or how deep the swamp is, to use Trump's terms. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's and there are already many indictments are already unsealed. A lot of people don't know what the tribunals are. A lot of people don't really they don't know where to even like look for information, right? They only know to go to the Facebook or mainstream media or local news channels, and so anything that anybody else comes up with is conspiracy or crazy or where did you find that, these kinds of things. But yeah, a lot of people have already been found, located, have been being taken care of in terms of legal processing. So yeah, I don't know, it's going to be it's about holding 0 point, knowing what your values are, knowing that they're yours and not somebody else's, right? That's that integrity, and standing in that, right? And I guess know when to speak and when to keep your mouth shut too, right? That's, for me, that's a big one, because I want to talk all the time and go, oh, I just can't, like, how can you not see yet? How can you, I don't go in public because I don't want to get into an argument with someone if they say, well, why this or why that? I don't want to put a mask on if I don't have to, because I have a strong immune system and I'm not going to get anybody sick. And I'm not going to get sick. And even if I did, I'm gonna overcome it, because I believe I can, right?
yeah.
So,
And you have the right to decide for yourself whether you want to get sick or not get sick.
yeah,
Exposures. Why don't you have that right? I
right.
don't understand why people just allow someone else to tell them that they've got to wear something or they can do and can't do something. Yeah, and most of this information and command structure has come not from governments. It's come from the United Nations via the World Health Organization. And who the hell voted them into power?
Exactly. It's exactly why we are no longer, that's why Trump took their funding away. So we
Yeah,
don't fund the WHO anymore. And the biggest WHO funder, I think, is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Bill Gates.
that's exactly right.
So anyway, um,
Oh, people that enables you to inject them with vaccines that have a microchip in it that's going to turn everybody into AI beings.
yeah. Yep, I think we just lost a doctor that was in the trials. So he died. I forget where he's at or even his name, so I apologize. I probably shouldn't bring things up when I don't have the information in my head to send you to. But I do believe a doctor died from the vaccine trials, and a lot of people are reporting that they feel separated from God. They don't. So this is obviously AI, right? This is what's going to happen. We're going to separate from soul, from spirit, and not have our human connections anymore. And I don't know if that can come back, right? I don't know. That goes into your bloodstream, right? That gets into your DNA. It's an RNA actually. It's pretty intense. So it sounds like it destroys any fire letters you would currently have running in through your DNA system, and perhaps not even allowing any more to come in. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's basically all about frequency
Hmm.
because once that chip is in your body, okay, then they can beam frequencies into your body that you are not aware of.
Hmm.
So that basically, and it's control of the soul body
Hmm.
because your soul body is an energy body and it's all about waves of energy. And your soul body brings your physical body into manifestation, not
Yes.
the other way around.
Right.
The creates the physical body. So when the physical body is they inject that microchip into your body, they can beam energy into your soul and control your soul, never mind your physical body. And once they have control of your soul body, or they're beaming negative frequencies and disrupting your natural soul energy that can create physical effects in humans. For instance, they can control your thoughts, they can control your emotions, they can control your physical responses to your natural emotions and create natural emotions, unnatural. It's all about frequency if people would take the time to understand this.
Yeah. And it's going to be easier. These are some things they already do now, right? We have voice to school technology. They've already done the mind stuff, but Project Mockingbird, CIA technologies, these kinds of things. But once this is in us, it's going to be easier. And even the awakened aren't going to be awake anymore, right? I know we're over time. Thank you, Colin. I know it's super late for you, and we're running over time. I don't see any other questions coming through. I want to say thank you so much to everybody that popped on to watch today and listen. And my little spinner tracker thing to do a free class wasn't working. I have everyone's names from last week, and I'm going to actually do a video where I draw out of a hat. But I wanted to share it here first so I can share with you guys. My thing wasn't working, so we're gonna do that. So you guys can find Colin. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your presence and your willingness to share. I love talking about practical spirituality and personal integrity. There's some of my favorite things to discuss, and I know we could just go on because it's easy to take little side steps and all that good stuff. But I want to say thank you for your time. You guys can find Colin's works at the writings of Colin Joe. .com. Did I get that right this time? The writings of colinjoe.com. He also is on Facebook, right here on Facebook, and has been back to doing grid work and fun stuff, but will definitely pop on to answer any questions that you have about his classes or anything like that. Myself, I'm currently running specials for healing sessions, remote healing sessions, and I do have a Patreon account. And I'll be doing teaching, fully doing some teaching starting in January. Instead of my year-long courses, it'll be through Patreon if I don't get kicked off. And Colin, also, you have a YouTube as well, I believe. What is your YouTube channel?
I think it's just Colin Joe Byrne.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Colin Joe Byrne. Thank you. Thank you. Ian was like, he has a YouTube channel too. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Colin, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you and I love you so much.
It's been great to be with you, and thanks all the people who joined us. Much appreciated. And to all the people who watch the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. We'd really appreciate that. So good night and love you all.
Bye, you guys.